Today is Friday, March 5th, 2021, and you're listening to the 10th broadcast of TBR Radio Presents, the TBR History Hour. My name's Dr. Ed DeVries, contributing editor at TBR Magazine, and for the next hour, I'll be your host here on the TBR History Hour. I'll be talking on the telephone with John Wayne Handley, who is the author of the novel From Macon to Manassas, which was published by a publishing company, Dixie Heritage Press, owned by yours truly. And so John Handley and I will be talking about Macon to Manassas. We'll also be talking about the Macon House, or the Cannonball House in Macon, Georgia, which is a property, a historic property and museum that John Wayne Handley is an officer of. We'll also be talking about the Confederate monument there in Macon, Georgia, what the Sons of Confederate Veterans are doing in Georgia to preserve and protect Confederate monuments in that state. We'll also be talking about the political situation there in Georgia. Of course, this phone call was recorded back in December, so we're actually talking about some current political events before they happened, knowing, of course, that this is the situation we would be in given the state of the role that Georgia played in the last election and so forth, and kind of talking about what the outcome would be if Joe Biden wound up being sworn in as quote-unquote president, which of course we know has happened. Anyways, you don't want to miss today's show, so stay tuned. Here it comes.
So
good to hear from you.
Yes, sir. So how is life in Georgia?
Today is wet and cold. We got a cold rain coming down and all, but other than that, things are going along pretty good. My wife Brenda still continues to struggle, but we have a doctor's appointment Friday. Hopefully they'll talk about doing that implant they're going to put in her back that hopefully will relieve her of some pain. Hopefully that'll be coming up probably first of the year. So that'll be the next step.
You got a lot of people in the country right now not exactly happy with your state or its scalawag politicians.
That's true. We've been very disappointed about that. And as someone said the other day, if Perdue and Loeffler get elected, nothing will get done in Washington, because they will have the majority, like that. But if they are not elected, then, well, it goes the other way entirely. And so I guess we'll see what January rolls out. Early voting started yesterday, I think, and they said that it's already much higher than in November. So people are excited about it, or at least they'll turn out for this one. At the Cannonball House, we had something interesting the other day. We had a meeting with our incoming mayor and a couple of the county commissioners. And, of course, the monuments were discussed there. And, with us, we have conflicting problems here. The SCV, the local SCV camps, had come to a compromise, we felt like, them and the other powers that be, the UDC and all, about moving the monuments to another location. No storage, nothing like that. We would see through all the movement ourselves. We thought we'd come to a very good compromise, in fact, that I wish we could see in many other communities, around the nation. But a fellow here that is commander of the local MOSB brought a lawsuit blocking their removal. And we're kind of in an odd position of, I guess you'd say, separating ourselves from technically somebody that's in another Southern Historical Association. We find ourselves on different sides of that. We felt like the compromise was the way to go. Actually, I think that actually the monuments would be, and I say monuments, there's a Confederate monument here. There's also one to Southern women that's also in the vicinity in downtown Macon. And they were going to move both of those. And frankly, I believe the location is a much more desirable location than where they're at. Simple as that. It looks like on the face that we lost on this by the compromise, but I don't see it that way. I just don't. So we think that the lawsuit will be defeated that's blocking their movement, and that will be accomplished. Of course, you've got a lot of things working to delay it right now. One thing, the weather. You can't pour the concrete platforms to move them to during the winter, and that's kind of tricky business there. So it'll probably be the spring before anything's done at the earliest. And like I said, I think this is going to be a good move, because we possibly tend to gain out of the monument movement a fenced-in park that's been landscaped with benches, with walkways, with lighting, with a security system that's actually overlooking Confederate Cemetery here in Macon that has between 600 and 800 veterans in it. I think it's a very appropriate place. It's just a matter of getting there. I said we were adamant about that we would have a local monument company that we know of and trust move them, and that we would not stand for them being put in storage. If they get put in storage, they disappear forever, frankly. So we felt like it was a win for everybody. The outgoing mayor was very excited about the compromise, and the incoming mayor has said, as the chief executive officer, that he would be obliged to fight the lawsuit blocking their movement, which I understand that. So all said and done, I think it's going to happen to a good conclusion. It's just going to take some legal wrangling and a little time. It's bad that the SCV and UDC find themselves on opposite sides of the MOSD, but that's essentially the case.
And it's funny that you would say this, because usually it's the opposite. Usually it's the MOS and B guys who tend to be more on the, let's compromise. And it's usually the SCV that's usually more dogmatic, and, the UDC, it can go either way. But it's kind of funny, because if I would have thought that someone was taking a hardline stance to keep a monument and someone was trying to effect a compromise, I would have just assumed it was the SCV guys taking the hardline stance and the MOS and B guys trying to compromise.
Well, we commonly do memorial services. Every year at these monuments. That's part of our Confederate Memorial Day services. The monuments now stand both in high traffic areas. You're almost risking your life to get out of your car and venture over to them. They would be, like I said, to me, at a more appropriate location. We could be very dogmatic and said, they're not going to be moved, no way, no how. Well, in fact, the Confederate monument was already moved back in the 1950s from another high traffic area to where it's at now. So moves are not an unprecedented thing, and sometimes the move can be for the benefit of the monument, actually, the way I see it. And that's the way I see it in this thing. As far as MOSD here, bluntly, the guy that is the commander of it is not, we're not on good terms, he and I, and he's very much radical in things like that, I think, more so than need be. There's a time to draw a battle line and stick to it. There's also a time when discretion is probably the better part of valor. And like I said, you think of the prospect of, I forgot to mention the land that the monuments are being moved to. There's a possibility that we may even get title and deed for it. And that's the thing that comes up so often, because the UDC says, well, we own these monuments. You often hear that. I guess a lot of them over the state are owned by the UDC. But they said, well, where's your deed to the land? Well, that was not done back in those days. It was kind of a handshake agreement. But in this age, you need title and deed to things if you can get them. And so, like I said, we've had some cooler heads that have prevailed and come to what we think is a good winning compromise that actually I think both sides would be pleased with. There are some that would like to see them put in storage. I mean, one thing I think about is the NAACP vow back in the 1970s, I think it was, to remove every vestige of the Confederacy from the face of the earth. certainly there's some that believe in that. They since them pushed in the river and done with. But I don't know. I'm pleased with the moderation that's occurred in this town. I mean, some of the hardline stands in other communities, frankly, they just flat lost. And I hope this doesn't sound like a sellout, but to people, but I really am enthusiastic about it. And we'll see where it goes. I didn't want to report about it in your newsletter and all like that because, frankly, I wasn't in the position to be doing that.
Right.
I don't mind discussing it with you, like that. But and telling you exactly what I do know about it. But I had a very good meeting with the commissioners and the mayor. Though we showed them at the Cannonball House what we do there. I mean, on our sign out front it says, quite frankly, Confederate Museum. Well, that's kind of a bold thing to have on your sign in this day and age, in some respects. But we do so much there. We teach, we do research, we write books, we do research. We have an event there we call Dinner with a Host. Imagine if you were invited to that home in 1856 for dinner. What would they serve you and how would they entertain you? It's a mesmerizing evening that we have there. We teach etiquette of all things there. You wouldn't think teenagers would give a flip about etiquette nowadays, but they fill up that class as fast as any we have. So we're involved in the music, the community. We teach music there. Because of that, we have recitals there, which are multiracial. I mean, you got people coming in the Cannonball House that would probably, under other circumstances, never darken the doors. And they created we simply got to know each other. Sometimes that's all it takes. What's that? They so often say peacefully coexist. And I guess that's really what we're asking, in a sense. So we feel like we're doing things maybe for more peaceful relationships between the races. In fact, I believe this mayor that's coming in will be a good thing for peace relations in the Macon. Macon's about 64% black. He ran against a black candidate. He's a white man, and he won by a 60-40 margin. Now that tells me that many black voters cast ballots in his favor. It almost has to be inevitable. So, we're hopefully we can let cooler heads prevail and avoid what a lot of cities have run into as far as these relationships. And I guess we're kind of off the topic and all.
Oh, that's okay. So I've been curious, what would happen if the Cannonball House became a recipient for some of these monuments as they're being removed?
That was an early suggestion, especially by the black community. But we simply do not have the room for them. For instance, the Confederate Monument is a massive thing. I mean, I doubt that the lowest base of it would fit in our backyard. Certainly not both monuments, but that was a suggestion. But like I said, the cemetery is going to be moved to. The monuments are proposed to be standing at the front gate of it, and this is an 1840 cemetery, one of the oldest in Macon. And like I said, countless Confederate veterans are buried all over that cemetery. And there's one place called Soldier Square where there are 600 markers for 800 graves there of nothing but Confederate soldiers. So to me, it's about as appropriate as a place you could have, I think. The monument to Southern women, simply, it has a woman giving a drink of water to what's obviously a wounded soldier, and on one side, and another woman on the other side, sitting down with two children who are presumably orphans. It's simply a tribute to the women of the South. Of course, you can read into that being related to the war, and it certainly is. We're not ashamed of that, but it's a pretty rare monument. I think the only other one in the state is in Rome, Georgia, similar to it. But those things are across from our city hall. For instance, we have a park down there that's dedicated to Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman had nothing to do with Macon. per se, like that. But I mean, there was a big movement to have a Martin Luther King statue put up in Macon, and that put the black commissioners kind of in a dilemma a little bit, because it was kind of difficult for them to ask for their monument to be set up and ours to be taken down. Not that they'd be bashful about doing that, but it was somewhat of a deterrent, I would think. But I think it'll all come to a peaceful resolution. We're very hopeful for it, especially after last Friday's meeting. And I guess the Cannonball House comes to as a meeting place or a lightning rod or whatever in the area, because we are a Confederate museum and the only one really in the area. By the way, we're having something interesting happening in this day and age. So many of the people that have massive collections, and there were some collections in Macon that were worth millions of Confederate artifacts and swords, uniforms, and all. So many of those collectors are passing away. Their heirs are inheriting these things, and in many cases, they have no use for them. In a lot of cases, they're not even trying to sell them. They're just saying, hey, you guys want this stuff? When somebody hands you a six-figure uniform and says, hey, you want this? That's kind of amazing. So we're hoping to expand. We've got some plans to actually expand our museum to accommodate these things we're getting. If you're ever through here and you're coming through, we should give you a call. Maybe we can meet in their house. I'd love to give you a tour.
Okay, repeat that again, please.
I said, if you're ever passing through this way, near Macon, and you could give me kind of a heads up, I'd love to meet with you at the Cannonball House and give you a tour.
Yes, sir. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, but like I said, if you see when you got an opportunity to come through this way, we
Open your web browser and type in www.barnesreview.org and discover the Barnes Review magazine. In the Barnes Review, you will read vignettes of man, from the prehistoric to the very recent, from forgotten races and civilizations to first-person accounts of World War II and the late Cold War. There is no more interesting magazine published today, nor a more significant and important subject than real history. So visit www.barnesreview.org and subscribe to the Barnes Review. You can subscribe to receive the Barnes Review magazine in its print form, or in convenient electronic delivery. Our host has been a subscriber to both formats for years. So visit www.barnesreview.org and subscribe to the Barnes Review.
We've also, one of the things we've also started at the Cannonball House is we started January a year ago, is the Middle Georgia Civil War Roundtable. We really don't know what we're doing with this, but we're plunging ahead anyway, and we've gotten a lot of support and really good attendance. In fact, as you know, Macon is home to Mercer University and Mercer University Press. Mercer University Press publishes a lot of Southern titles. It's kind of amazing. The three head people of Mercer University Press are members of our roundtable. And I asked one of them, frankly, I said, how do you get away with this? Because Mercer is about as liberal as they come. And they said, well, we learned a long time ago we weren't going to sell any books down here if we put Sherman on the cover. So they invite in speakers from, which they have access to speakers through their publishing, and they invite in authors and so forth with these books, and make very good guest speakers. So like I said, we've been we're kind of a rallying point, I guess, for efforts in this area by nature of what we are. Tours have not been that great since we reopened in June. We maybe get 10 or 12 tours a week, which is not a lot. Normally we get 10,000 people a year through there. But there's been some incredible donations this year from patrons and private sources. Actually, I guess you'd have to say, and we give God the glory for this, we're prospering in a tough time and actually flourishing. it's the news. Generally, to me, is kind of upbeat as we go into a very unpredictable 2021.
I was going to say Sarah Palin is in Georgia right now. So what's she stirring up down there?
I was not aware of that. I really was not. To be honest with you, much of the news I try to avoid. I don't mean to, but sometimes you just get enough. And I don't know.
But how can you celebrate
she...
things like Pete Buttigieg becoming the next Secretary of Transportation, or Mitch McConnell totally selling out if if you're not watching the Clinton News Network and some of this other stuff to find these things out?
I guess I'll just have to celebrate something else. I don't know. I just believe God has the ability to shelter us in the storm, and I believe He will. A lot of people don't believe that, but I do. I'll be 70 years old on January 1st, and I think back a lot of times at the storms He's brought me through. And,
so I didn't realize that you were that far along in life.
Oh, yes.
For some reason, I thought you were a little closer to my own age. Which kind of puts some of your wife's health issues in perspective, because I thought I was praying for a much younger woman, and maybe I have been.
Yeah, she'll be 61 in May.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but, I thought, because there are some women, in their 40s and early 50s who have the severe arthritis and other, sciatica and other things that she has. But I just and it's not that, and I'm not diminishing any of her pain because she's a little older than I thought she was. I'm just saying that I thought I was praying for a much younger woman, and
right.
Obviously it would have been even more unlikely for those to have developed in a woman of the age that I thought she was. But,
right.
But given the fact that, as you said, you're going to be 70 here in a few weeks, in your book, From Macon to Manassas, you're writing about a very younger man. And what was that like as an older man, basically putting yourself in the character of a younger man for however many months and years? Because it takes a while to crank out 800 pages. You don't just do that.
Right. Yeah, it was a long time coming. That's very easy for me to answer. I am gratefully at 70 years old still an active reenactor. I mean, I'm talking about in the field, the battles, the marches, the things like that. Not as active as I once was, but I mean, I've been at this about 30 years now. But I'm still grateful to be out there doing it, amongst a much younger crowd. And to be blunt about it, my wife and I discuss this all the time. We frankly don't feel our age. Not inside. Now, the outside may, the aches and pains are there. But I still have the same mental outlook and emotional makeup, I think, that I did maybe when I was in my 20s, if that makes any sense. And having the experience of actually being a reenactor in the field for so long like that, was a tremendous asset to both Kevin and I. Some of the stories in there, anecdotes and so forth, are actually taken from reenactor experiences. Of course, it being historical fiction, like that, we had the liberty to put in things like that may not have actually happened to the 8th Georgia, but certainly happened within our reenactment company. I guess that's what it is. I really don't feel my age. I still work in a period musical group. We're playing next month. We do Irish music and 1860s, period music like that, and still work with that. I teach guitar. Brenda teaches piano. We know I don't know if I mentioned to you, but we do writing efforts there for the Cannonball House. We do a series called In This House about some of the residents of that, specifically children that live there. They're historical fiction books about the children that live there. Our third one is coming out. The artwork should be done about mid-January, and it's set to be released. It was supposed to come out last year, but so many things got derailed last year, and we're already working on some others. Cheryl, my boss there, has commissioned me to do a book about Colonel John Hill Lamar, who was a Maconite and colonel of the 61st Georgia Infantry. We're enjoying doing that. And so I don't know, I hope that answers your question in a very rambling way. I guess it's a mental outlook that is still youthful. There's nothing that I like any better to be part of an infantry line going into battle. It's just a certain, especially if it's about the crack of dawn, there's just a certain exhilaration about that. I mean, let's face it, I know you know probably a lot of reenactors and all like that. Either you love it or you don't. If you don't absolutely love it, you couldn't stand the stuff. It's just too difficult, too much expense, too much endeavor, all like that. But in many ways, I'm still that same person as when Kevin and I started the book, and I think he is too.
So, I know that there was a sequel in the works. Are you still making progress on the sequel, or is that?
Frankly, not much. And Kevin has not expressed a lot of interest in doing that. He told me one time, he said, I don't know that I've got another one in me. We are working on, well, I am working on other projects. I don't know of any writing projects he's doing right now. In fact, I'm working on three projects right now. The one I mentioned about John Hill Lamar. I'm doing one about a fellow by the name of Elam Alexander, who practically was the contractor that built just about all of Macon. He, in fact, built the Cannonball House. I'm also working on a consummate book with a friend of mine about Grizzleville. Of course, there was a late 1864 battle there. It was really the only organized resistance to Sherman's march to the sea that occurred. We're trying to do a consummate book on not just the battle, but the entire community of Grizzleville, which exists to some extent even today. So I've got those projects plus another book that my wife and I are doing about the In This House series. So actually, I've got at least 4 books I'm working on right now simultaneously, trying to finish up. I don't know when we would have time to do a sequel to Manassas. I would love to. We had thought about it when we first did it because we thought, at the scope of this book only covering the first 6 or 7 months of the war, this thing could run forever as far as the sequel. But right now, honestly, we haven't worked on it much. I do have some preliminary work still saved that we did, but I don't know. I couldn't really think that we would follow that up right now. Besides, to be blunt about it, I haven't seen a lot of sales lately. And so I don't know how widely it's going to be accepted. I really appreciate you plugging the book in your newsletter like you have here recently. And my sister now, my youngest sister runs an art studio in Gray, Georgia, about 20 miles north of us. That's how she makes her living. She's been a graphic artist for all her life. That's all she's ever done. She's done some of the illustrations in her books and all. But she sells the books in her store there. And she gets tremendous traffic there, and the sales there have been pretty good. She simply buys them on Amazon or wherever she can get them and resells them there. And that's turned out to be a very good source for us. At the Cannonball House, we have them in stock there, but there haven't been many sales. But frankly, as I noted, we haven't had a lot of traffic this year like we normally do. We have an interesting book shop there. We sell much more than books. We have a huge variety of things there, and we have people that come in to shop our gift shop, book shop, that don't even take a tour. They just said, "Hey, we're here to do some shopping," from the community and so forth. So, other than those sales, I don't know of any. I mean, I haven't heard from PayPal in months, and so I assume nothing's been sold like that online much. A few friends and family have bought them, but I don't know how much you've monitored it and what you might know about it. At one time, you told me they were selling in Australia, I believe.
Yes, sir.
And which kind of was really surprising to me. But the guy that I think you mentioned to me in an email is a guy that was selling for $56 on eBay. Like that he would buy one when he got an order from it. Frankly, even with the hardcover at that price, I wonder how many he sold at that.
Right. You also have to realize that the way that's probably working is he gets an order, he orders it on Amazon, and then Amazon ships it to whoever he tells them to ship it to, who is his customer.
Right.
And then Amazon essentially, orders the book from our printer, and then our printer generates a royalty, and it goes into the fund, and you got the PayPal every month that there's something to pay out there, but your royalty on that hardback book, if I remember right, is probably about $1 and something cents.
Right. Yeah.
So he's selling the book for $56, and of course he pays eBay fees, and he's going to pay Amazon, and he's going to pay whatever. So he's probably making $7 or $8. Amazon's probably making $4 or $5. The printer is probably making the lion's share of money. They're probably making $8 or $9, and you're making $1 and some change.
Right. Yeah. And I think if I remember correctly, the total money that Kevin and I received on the book through PayPal probably would not come to about $100, maybe slightly more, total. Which, and I'm not complaining, I'm just observing, like that. I mean, that's obviously not setting the woods on fire, but then again, a novel is kind of probably a hard thing to sell, more so than a nonfiction book, I would think.
You know what the big sellers are? The guy who does the webinars and things on Kindle Cash or whatever. Talking about, writing books and, self-publishing books and selling them on Amazon, and how people are, becoming millionaires doing this. More people are attempting this than are becoming millionaires, first of all.
I wouldn't know that.
Which is why the people who are doing these seminars are doing seminars. Because they're making more money doing seminars than they're making selling books.
Yeah.
And doing the seminars, of course, is gives a marketplace for their books, because they are constantly promoting their books to the people who go to their seminars. The people who go to their seminars buy their books. And, of course, now they can show these book sales charts that look like they're through the roof. But the people who are actually making the big bucks is self-published authors. Are the people who are writing erotic fiction and romance novels.
I see.
And there are a few sci-fi writers who are doing it. But the sci-fi genre is quite frankly getting over flooded.
Extra, read all about it.
If you're like me, and I'll bet you are, you like to be on the cutting edge of honest news and accurate information. 26 times a year, the American Free Press newspaper can be delivered to your door, packed with the kind of uncensored news that I know you're going to appreciate. If you're ever dissatisfied with your subscription to the American Free Press, their guarantee is that you just drop them an email and they will gladly refund the unused portion of your subscription. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.americanfreepress.net. Once again, www.americanfreepress.net. And find out about the American Free Press. Do it today.
Extra, read all about it.
this guy who's selling your book on eBay for $56, what he's doing is he's got 10,000 books listed. Every time a new book shows up on Amazon, he gets a new eBay listing.
Mm-hmm.
And because eBay doesn't charge you to list stuff anymore, they only charge you now a seller's fee when it sells.
Oh, I see.
And so in his mind, if nobody ever buys a copy of your book from him, all it cost him was, the 5 minutes that it takes him to put up an eBay listing.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, if somebody buys your book, he just made a few bucks, but he's got thousands of listings up there. So if, 30 people a week buy something, he's eking out a living, however small. But,
right.
but it either A, beats working a job for a living, or B, because of COVID, there is no job to work for a living, and it, at least it's doing something for him.
I see. Yeah. Yeah. My question was somebody saying, "Hey, well, look at that book on eBay for $56. I think I'll take a copy." Mm. It's not that Kevin and I are not proud of the book. We are. I never thought it was a literary masterpiece. Mm-hmm. It was our best effort, and like I said, we're not ashamed of it by any means. But it's not like what was the guy that wrote Gods and Generals and Killer
Shahara? I can't remember his first name.
Yeah, that's fiction, somewhat historical fiction, and I love his writing. I could read just about anything he wrote. We're not in that class, never will be, I suppose, nothing like that. But I just, to be honest with you, our book would have never been published at all if it hadn't been for you, and we thank you again for that. It just was not going to happen. We tried every way we could to get it done, and outside of self-publishing, which we could not afford, and it just would not have happened. At the very least, we have the gratification of seeing something that we can put on a shelf, that was published, and that meant a lot to us, especially after something you worked at and gave you your best for over 20 years. And but I don't know. I've had some friends that bought it, and they were very complimentary about it, and all. But and that's really good. But you need about 1 million of them.
Mm-hmm. And I think one thing that kind of hindered you, and it's not to say that, had you put a dozen copies in the Cannonball House that they would have sold out the next day, or that you put 100 copies in their bookstore, and over the course of a couple months they'd just flown off the shelves. I'm not saying that. But, for example, the Cannonball House there, I know, is one of your, could have been a marketing point for that book. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty much denied because of COVID. I know that, you could have taken the book to SCV meetings and, sold copies that way as well. And, again,
we have done
that was
that.
another venue that was denied because of COVID. Mm-hmm. So if you take COVID out of the equation, and there are some books that your bulk of your sales are going to be Amazon. But basically, because of COVID, Amazon became the only marketing outlet for your book. And because you're known in Georgia and you're known locally, but not known globally, Amazon might not have been the best venue for selling your book. Yours is a book that would have sold locally had you had the opportunity to do so, and you didn't because of COVID.
Right. We had the opportunity at the Cannonball House, for instance, to have book signings. Our boss is terrific about stuff like that, very supportive and all. Kevin and I were invited to some SCV camps to go and speak and present the book, and we sold some there, here and there. When I say sold them, we gave them the ordering information, and they ordered it themselves. And I heard back later from them say, "Hey, I liked your book," or "I got your book," something like that. You're right. The sources to sell it were limited, but then again, we did not have a lot of time to devote to it either, for different reasons, work and different things in life. But Brendan and I noticed something about our series that we wrote for the Cannonball House, the In This House book, the series down there. These are not runaway sellers. We sell one here and we sell one there. We sell them to people that come in the house, enjoy the tour, and say, "Wow, I'd like to know a little bit more about it." Some books are not, I think they're designed to be something that sells day in and day out. You're going to sell X number this year and same number next year and like that. Maybe the best you could hope for is a consistent or steady seller. Maybe it'll be that. As far as a book just being what they call a runaway bestseller, that's very rare in my estimation. I mean, certainly they're out there, but don't mean to be selling ourselves short, but by the nature of the book, you're writing to a very limited audience anyway. So, I mean, as a lot of people today, it's like you hear reports of people that will call the police to people because they flew a Confederate flag in their backyard. People have got the impression somehow, and I know how, that anything Confederate is both evil and even illegal in this country now. And some people would not touch it or even give it a chance. But I guess we'll see where it goes from there. Like I said, we will continue to carry it in the Cannonball House. We'll continue to carry it at my sister's art studio, which we have sold some at both locations, and we'll continue to keep those outlets. We do have, as part of the outreach of the Cannonball House, we have some restaurants in town that offer what they call showcase windows. These are like little glassed-in cubes that, as their patrons are coming in around through the serving line or coming into the restaurant or whatever, that they offer us a place to put an advertisement for our place of business. And my wife and I maintain one at some restaurants here, and we furnish them. Our book is in those locations, so people are seeing it. We've really explored all the exposure we know how to explore, to access here in this area. I'm not a marketing expert by no means, but we've taken advantage of what few things we could find, and we'll keep plugging away at it. There again, I don't know. I've heard from I could probably name you a dozen people that said they really loved the book, but it takes a few more than that. There again, I can't say enough how much we appreciate the chance you gave us.
Well, I was happy to do that.
Open your web browser and type in www.barnesreview.org and discover the Barnes Review magazine. In the Barnes Review, you will read vignettes of man, from the prehistoric to the very recent, from forgotten races and civilizations to first-person accounts of World War II and the late Cold War. There is no more interesting magazine published today, nor a more significant and important subject than real history. So visit www.barnesreview.org and subscribe to the Barnes Review. You can subscribe to receive the Barnes Review magazine in its print form, or in convenient electronic delivery. Our host has been a subscriber to both formats for years. So visit www.barnesreview.org and subscribe to the Barnes Review.
You've mentioned the Cannonball House several times. We've talked about it. How has COVID affected the Cannonball House?
We closed in mid-March because of COVID. From January to mid-March, we had already seen people there from 10 foreign countries in 29 states. That gives you some idea of the diversity of traffic we get in there. We have a big festival here in March called the Cherry Blossom Festival. It attracts thousands. We had 30-something tour buses lined up that we simply had to erase because of that. As I mentioned before, we see normally 10,000 people from literally all over the world in there in a year's time. That's been very minimal. They kept the staff working even while we were closed from mid-March to June because, as you can imagine, there's a million tasks of cataloging and so forth that can be done if no one ever walks to the front doors. We opened, as I said, in June 1st, and traffic is kind of trickled in. You have little bumps, like you have a bump coming around Thanksgiving where people have relatives coming into town and they want to show them around the town and show them something to do. And, you'll have more people in there like that. Around Christmas, the same thing. But our business has been greatly diminished. If we had to depend on what came in the door this year, well, we probably lost 35% of our business. So we would be in bad shape. But we don't depend on all of that. COVID has definitely affected our business. We are tourism. And we noticed that even with the people coming in since June 1st, I can't think of a single visitor from a foreign country. And I mean, it was nothing before COVID for me to have visitors from Russia, France, and England in a single day. You know, nothing unusual at all about that. I can't think of a single one that's been in since June, and I'm sure air travel is almost non-existent. I talked to a guy the other day, and he said he flew somewhere here within the United States. He said the plane was almost empty. So people are not traveling nearly as much as they were for any reason, I don't think. This doesn't seem like in ours, but it may come back. They're talking about the vaccine now and that type of thing, and I don't know how effective that'll be, but there's a vast curiosity. I don't have to tell you about the persecution of all things Southern, but sometimes that works out in a way that we might not expect. A lot of the visitors that I do get are Northerners. I get a great opportunity to talk to Northern people that come in. I get to talk to people from California that come in that know virtually nothing of our Southern history except what they've been told through the liberal media. And invariably, these people are coming in and in so many words saying, now tell me the truth.
Well, I'm seeing that because, for example, my book, The Truth About the Confederate Battle Flag, I get orders for it almost every day. Mm-hmm. And people, going to the website or going to different places online, and they're seeing it and they're ordering it. And I'm shipping these things out, and some things are just obvious. Right. When you get an order for, Lakeisha Brooks, and the address is in Detroit, Michigan. Hey, more than likely, she's not a UDC member. So
you're right.
So what is happening here? Obviously, you have a black woman who's curious. She's hearing all of this talk, and obviously she's either directly wanting to expose herself to the other side, or at the very least, she's curious and she's looking for information, and so she sees it and she buys it. And that's not just a once in a blue moon thing. I mean, that's however many times a week those things are happening, and so that tells me that there are people who aren't just swallowing whatever it is that the mainstream media or the NAACP or the Democrat Party or their Marxist college professors are trying to feed them.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
I'm by no means muzzled down there. I mean, I'm free to tell whatever I need to tell there. At the Cannonball House, with the residents that live there, we can document a pattern of good, even outstanding racial relationships there, even extraordinary racial relationships between the people that may have been, we know nothing about any slaves that were there, very little, I'll put it that way. We do know about hired servants that were there. But we're free to tell these things. Some people look at me kind of funny, like, I don't believe you. And invariably, I'll tell a tourist that, now, they taught you to do something very dangerous in school. They taught you to read. So, therefore, you do not have to believe a thing I say until you check it out. And I encourage you to do so. And I'm very open to people like that. I've had, in all the years I've been there, I would not need but one hand to tell you about to count what I consider bad tours that I've had there. Where people really challenged me or came in with a chip on the shoulder, that type of thing. That usually just does not happen. Most of the people are warm, wonderful people in there. In fact, I did a school group tour for 8th graders yesterday. Wonderful bunch of kids. And we're really getting some opportunities there. And maybe it's one at a time, two at a time like that, but we have an opportunity. In fact, Brenda, through her piano lessons, she has several students that are black. Well, they come there because the parents bring the kids there for lessons. They come to the recitals there. And me being the consummate tour guide or for perpetual tour guide that I am, I'll be sitting there sometimes having nothing to do but work at my desk, and the people will be there, and I'll strike up a conversation with them and said, let me tell you about a little bit of maybe this artifact or that artifact in the house. Maybe nothing military, piece of furniture, something like that and all. And these are people, they're interested. They're really interested. I mean, this is a place, like I said, that's got Confederate Museum on the sign. And they obviously feel comfortable being there. They're in a place they would probably never come into in their life if it wasn't for the music lessons. So we have some opportunities. It's just like evangelism. I mean, opportunities come your way. And we need to always be ready to take advantage of them. And I'm encouraged by it. I mean, I heard a speech several years ago by a gentleman at a Confederate Memorial Day, and he mentioned something in there that had just never really occurred to me. He said that each generation seems to turn their back on the beliefs of their parents or grandparents to some extent. And I thought, well, that's kind of true. I never forget when I grew my hair long and started playing rock and roll. My dad wasn't really all that thrilled with that. But and I thought about, I may not live to see it. I certainly may not. But this pendulum may swing back the other way one day. And it's just possible. I understand that in Germany, for instance, all things Confederate, they are very popular because they still have the romance of the lost cause, so to speak, there. I had a friend that used to do reenactments in England, Japan, and Germany. If you imagine that, I was told, I said, what does a rebel yell sound like in Japanese? But I don't know. Like I said, it may come back one day. Certainly, we're on the ropes now. They're using COVID to extinguish a lot of things, like reenactments are few and far between. In many cases, they're gone underground. They become private events. In other words, we used to do a thing called campaign events, which there would be spectators there. We just went to the woods, did our thing, and went home. And a lot of them are doing that now. Our reenactment group is going ahead with plans as usual, those much we can. We plan on having a big winter drill in February, as we usually do. So, I don't know. We're not at the point of just laying down and dying yet, and I don't see us coming to that point unless things get very much worse in the coming year and years. But,
so, as far as the SCV is concerned, we've talked about the Cannonball House, and we've talked about your book, and we've talked about some of your upcoming writing projects. Does your SCV camp have anything in the works for 2021? Maybe something that you were going to do in 2020 and didn't get the opportunity to, or any new ideas that you have? I mean, what are y'all looking to do here as far as advancing the football of heritage down the field in the coming year?
My personal SCV camp, Camp Then on Soul Drive, Jones County, grew out of our reenactment company. I belonged to other SCV camps and all, but we began getting some people from that county, a lot of young people, into the reenactment corps. Most of us in there that were SCV guys and all like that, and had been for some years, said, this is a gold mine as far as getting youth into the SCV. I mean, here they are. They love the reenactment thing. Let's start an SCV camp there, and we've done it. It's done very well. It has a strong reenactor base, which some camps do and some don't. But one thing that was always of prime importance that we held above everything else, not just as SCV, but as reenactors in our particular reenactment company, was that nothing, absolutely nothing, interfered with Confederate Memorial Day services of any kind. Since we have the uniformed riflemen like that, we're called upon to to do memorial services quite a lot. Our musical ensemble that I mentioned, we're called on to play music of these things like that. We're very big on graveyard markings, of assisting in memorial services and that type of thing. That may not sound like a big deal to some people, but what's this all about anyway? It's remembering those Confederate veterans that served, and we feel like that's our number one priority. And we will advance that agenda very aggressively in the years to come as much as we can. I know that some of the good SCV brethren are a little critical about us sometimes because, frankly, I think they wish we were a little more political. Actually, the SCV was never formed to be a political organization. I think it says that in its creed or bylaws, something like that, that it was a historical organization, not a political. And we've had some people that have joined our camps and SCV camps, and frankly, I think they found us not radical enough for them. I don't think you have to be that. As I mentioned to you about the monuments, I think we accomplished what we considered somewhat of a victory anyway through reason and negotiation rather than I can't think of one thing we did that was radical and all of that. Let's face it, some cities have the power just to go in and bulldoze these monuments and be done with it. I forget how tall the Confederate monument here is in Macon, but it's a massive thing. We know enough that all it would take would be somebody to throw a rope around it, hook that rope to the back of a pickup truck, gun it, and the debate would be over. The thing would be in pieces in the street. We know it's that easy to lose them. So in some cities, I mean, they've just gone in and removed them under cover of darkness or whatever and all of that. So being able to still have somewhat of a standing in the community and try to be accepted as another organization in the community and a respected one, I think that's kind of our agenda somewhat. Right now, most things Confederate have zero respect anywhere. Not that that's deserved, but that's the way it certainly worked out. We really hope that we can do that and possibly bring some better understanding about it. I've had some dealings with the Klan in years past when I was a reenactor, and I had a guy tell me in one of the counties, he said, and this shocked me as a young reenactor, he said, you know, the Klan hates you guys. They hate what you do. And I couldn't believe he was saying that because I thought, man, I would think they would love us. He said, no, your actions tend toward better understanding. Better understanding tends toward peace, and that's the last thing they want. They want a race war. I'll never forget the guy telling me that, you know, whether he was exactly accurate on it or not, but that was certainly his opinion. So we hope to promote that understanding. We hope to, as you say, people are buying your book that you wouldn't expect. I have a habit of listening to opposing viewpoints a lot. It kind of prepares me if I am called upon to counter some of the arguments and all like that. I don't think that's what all these people are doing that's buying your book. I think that you've got people out there, some of them may be, but I have to assume that these people are sincerely seeking. I base that upon what I see almost daily in visitors at my location. You know, people are coming in and they're wanting some answers. I've had people tell me there said, everything you've told me is nothing like what I was told in school. I've never heard this side of it before. I had one guy say, and very bluntly, tell me the truth. And on leaving, he said, I knew there had to be another side to it. So there are some people out there. There's an old Quaker saying that says, start small and stay at it. I guess that's my philosophy.
So I guess that's a good place to leave this.
Okay. Well, it's always a pleasure talking with you.
And we are out of time for this week's TBR Radio Presents, the TBR History Hour. Make sure you go to our website, www.barnesreview.org. Check out the Barnes Review magazine. We've got a new issue coming out this week. It is the March-April issue of the Barnes Review magazine. There's some great stuff in there, including an article by yours truly. Go to Amazon.com, type in Macon to Manassas by John Wayne Handley. It's a great novel. You'll want to pick up a copy. It's available in softback, hardback, and as a Kindle ebook. Anyways, we will have another great show for you again next week. Same time, same place. Come back again. Until then, from all of us here at TBR Radio, God bless, and I'll talk to you again next week.